Welcome to the U3 Media Podcast, where our mission is to unite the world through coffee. I'm Christy Ross, and joining us today is Brian Franklin, founder, owner, and roast master of DoubleShot Coffee Company. Welcome, Brian.
Hi, Christy. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on the show. So for the benefit of the audience, I want to share a couple things about you.
Oh, dear.
You've been in the coffee industry, hopefully I get this right, officially almost 20 years and unofficially, I guess, over 25. Previously, you were a personal trainer by day, a roaster by night. You earned the title of Coffee Nazi, which I'm sure we'll talk about why. And I'm going to fast forward to here and now. And today, you also own a coffee farm in Nicaragua. But there's so much more that's occurred over your eventful 50 years of life, and we'll hear some of that today. So I'm going to start out with actually your fitness background. You're incredibly fit today at age 50, and fitness is important to you. Where did that stem from?
I played college football, and high school football really got me into, being disciplined and all that. And then I played college football, and after college, I ended up getting into endurance sports. And so I started doing a lot of running and mountain bike racing and adventure racing, things like that. So
I love adventure racing. It's one of those things that really just adds the complexity of all of the elements, right? I totally see you doing that. So you also, I saw that you ran a 50-mile run in Canada when you turned 50. Is that right?
On my 50th birthday, right?
On your 50th birthday. That is very cool. Is that the first time you ran a 50-mile run?
No, I've countless number of 50-mile runs. I've run 100 miles twice, and I've run over a marathon, 75 times probably.
So you just say that so casually. So I don't know if you know this, but this is like turning into a fitness show because I love fitness myself, and I'm also an athlete. But just one last question on fitness. So what is your current workout routine? Like, what does that look like on a daily basis?
I probably don't work out as much as people think I do, but I'm consistent. And so every morning I do push-ups and sit-ups and lateral raises and bicep curls and lunges. I go to the gym on the weekends, and I run long on the weekends. I cycle on Wednesdays and run on Thursdays. So it's not a lot. It's just that I always do the same thing,
Well, consistency is key, right? Like a lot of times that's what keeps you fit and keeps you on point, I should say. So now we're going to shift to coffee.
Okay.
What was the spark that got you into coffee in the first place?
Being a personal trainer, I was getting up really early in the morning every day. And so, coffee was the thing that was waking me up. And then I started figuring out that, there were ways to have better coffee. Like I could buy whole bean instead of pre-ground coffee, and it was better. And then somebody told me I should try a French press, and I tried it, and it was terrible. And then I found out that I needed a burr grinder instead of a blade grinder, and so I was just working my way up through the hierarchy of better coffee, and it just kept going from there. It still goes today, right? I'm still learning about how to make better coffee.
Yeah, we continue to learn every day. I totally agree. So, but I also read that you started roasting at home. Like, walk us through what that looks like, because I think a lot of people don't really understand how they'd even go about roasting at home.
Right. I grew up in Illinois and went back home.
Woohoo! Illinois.
Yeah.
I'm here.
Now I'm in Oklahoma, but went back home to visit my parents during the holidays, and was flipping through catalogs, and I found a little home coffee roaster, and I thought, it never occurred to me that all coffee was roasted by somebody, and so I figured it was too messy, and I didn't know anything about it, so I tossed it, and then I became obsessed with scanning the very few pages that were on the internet at the time, trying to find a coffee roaster, and eventually found one and bought Ken David's home coffee roasting book, and got a bunch of small samples of coffee and a little fluid bed roaster, and threw some coffee in there, roasted the coffee, brewed it, drank it, and had what in my memory is an epiphany that I'd never had coffee that wasn't stale before that. So it was my first time having fresh coffee.
That's awesome. And then you just it was like a steamroller from there.
Right.
Like you it so there's a lot that occurred after that. And I guess what I want to do is I want to try to understand and bridge this link, I guess, or create this link of how you went from that to all of a sudden becoming what I'll call the coffee Nazi. And that's probably not even politically correct today, okay? But just, share with us what that link is. Like, how did you earn that title?
I roasted coffee at home for 6 or 7 years before I opened the Double Shot, and decided I wanted to go open it in Boulder, Colorado, which is really an impossible place to open a business when you're not rich. So I spent a couple of years out in Colorado cruising around trying to figure that out. And by the time I ended up getting people to loan me enough money to get the place open back in Tulsa, I sacrificed like my health, all my money. Like I'd given up everything. And so in the pursuit of trying to share this amazing coffee thing that I found with people. And so, when I opened, I thought people were going to come in and they're going to go, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing. Thank you so much for showing me what coffee can be." And what really happened was people came in and they said, "I'll have a caramel macchiato," and I was like, "Oh my God, what have I done?" And so I became this rigid person. It just became this thing where it was like, we're either going to do it my way or we're not going to do it at all. I've given up too much to sacrifice my, what I think coffee should be and what I set out to show people in the first place.
Well, then how did that actually play out between, call it, your personal values and actually growing and building your business?
It was hard. I mean, I had to educate the public about coffee. And so, there was a core group of people that came in and really stood by me throughout this time. Whether or not they, understood what I was doing, they respected the fact that I took a stance and I didn't deviate from that. And there was a lot of tomfoolery going on. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I was an idiot, right? But I was young and just getting started in business. And so there was a lot of spare time to do stupid things, but it is all part of the lore of what the Double Shot is. The thing that became me as the coffee Nazi was that people would come in and ask for something or disrespect me in some way, that I would say, get out. There's plenty of places to drink coffee in Tulsa. Go to Starbucks. I don't care. I don't want your money. Get out of here. And so I got this moniker, rightfully so, probably.
Oh, but you've done something right, okay? I mean, so was there a turning point when you sort of felt like you had to be flexible to meet the customers where they are? Like, I assume you've made adjustments over the years because you have an incredible following.
Yeah, I've made adjustments, but it's not how you think. It's the other way. Like I've taken things off of the menu steadily. We've gotten rid of flavors and things. It's like we've whittled it down to where we're trying to, people come in and they order a mocha or something. And I try to get them to drink a latte. And then I try to get them to drink an Americano, and I try to get them to not put milk in it. We're trying to get them to actually taste what coffee is, so that I know that the more they taste coffee without milk and sugar in it, the more likely they are to only be able to drink my coffee. And so that's always the goal here.
Yeah, but I love that because you're spending the time to educate them what quality coffee really is, right? And be able to appreciate it. So, okay, so I would say that when I look at what you've done, and just after meeting you, I gather that you're really this all or none sort of person. So, if you were to describe yourself in 3 words, what would it be?
God. When I was in like high school or something, somebody asked this question, and I remember thinking, what would a girl want me to be? And so I was like, cute, smart, and funny, but now, I mean, like, I'm like determined. I'm resilient. I don't know. I have a lot of endurance. How about that?
Yeah. But you look at those three qualities, and that's like the perfect storm for a successful entrepreneur.
It's hard.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so is there something that your employees know about you that you kind of wish they didn't, or something you wish they did know about you?
Uh, I'm pretty much an open book. There's not really much about me I mean, people don't know hardly anything about me. People think I'm really this mysterious guy, but I, I'm not hiding anything. I just don't talk that much. So I don't know. I mean, people get to know me over time, and I'm different than they think I am, I think.
And we're trying to get you to talk today, so that's good.
Right.
So let's actually talk about DoubleShot. So how many employees, how many locations? Just give us sort of the sense of where you're at with DoubleShot today.
We hover between 17 and 20 employees. I have still only one location. We started a couple blocks from where I am now and then moved over here, never closed really. So we moved here in 2019. It's a big place and there's a lot going on behind the scenes here. So we have a wholesale program and online sales. And I have a warehouse that I bought actually thinking that it could be a great place for a second location. But the space is 10,000 square feet. So it would be like the largest coffee shop in the country or something. I'm not sure what we're going to do with that, but that's where we are right now.
Very cool. Well, I saw, I still have to get out there to see your place in person, but I saw a picture. So it looks like a barn, but with like a lot of windows, right? I mean, it's a pretty big space.
Yeah, it is a barn. I bought this barn in Bern, Indiana. It was built in 1850, and the Amish guy tagged every single beam in the barn, diagrammed it, and tore it down and put it on semis and brought it to Tulsa. And it's sitting just south of downtown Tulsa, so it's like on your way into downtown. There's this barn, and of course we added on a glass atrium and patios. And I bought a bunch of reclaimed brick from a Coca-Cola bottling plant that we used the brick all throughout the building and built a roastery onto the back. All the flooring upstairs is from plank roads that they used for driving out into oil fields in Osage County. So, much of the material that we use is all reclaimed. So it's a pretty cool place.
I love that. Yeah, it looks very cool. I can't wait to come visit. So talk a little bit about your offering at DoubleShot. You talked a little bit about whittling down your menu, but talk a little bit about the offering, and then also if you have a favorite.
Yeah, like I said, it's pretty bare bones. We're kind of known for not having macchiatos on the menu. And it's because in the beginning, people didn't know what a macchiato was. They thought it was Starbucks version of a macchiato. And so I just took it off altogether. And people get mad that we don't have them. But it's like, I don't want to add another milk drink to my menu. I'm trying to get people off of milk. And I don't want to buy 72 more cups, So we have a pretty limited menu. My favorite thing is an Americano, and we always have a single origin espresso available. So, right now we've got a pink bourbon natural on the single origin espresso, and that Americano is really good.
Awesome. So where'd the name come from? I mean, I kind of know, but it's still it's an interesting story, and also share a little bit maybe about the battle over the name.
Right. I was trying to think of a name that I could exchange for an icon at some point. And so I came up with the idea of double shot, like a double shot of espresso, and made this icon that's like a coffee cup stain on a napkin with a 2 in the middle. So 2.
But you made that. You did that yourself, right?
I did. And I didn't even know how to do graphic design at the time. I was struggling.
Super impressive. Super impressive. I love your logo.
Thanks. And it hasn't changed for 20 years. So it's the exact same logo that we started with. But yeah, as it turned out, it was probably a really bad name because I didn't understand intellectual property law when I started the thing. And so I picked a name that I couldn't trademark, which is fine, as long as you don't mind there being other things out there, other businesses called DoubleShot. But I did get a cease and desist letter from Starbucks because they have a can of something, soda or something called Starbucks DoubleShot, and they own the trademark for that term. And somehow they filed the trademark without getting uh, having an exception for the term itself and not exclusively the word double shot. So they actually do own the trademark for the word double shot in the coffee industry.
So that's interesting because you also gained an early following, I would say, by standing up to Starbucks, right? Because you defended yourself. I mean, you went head to head and won, right?
Right. I got this cease and desist letter and called an attorney friend of mine who was a customer, and I thought it was funny, but he didn't think it was funny at all. Right. And
Most people wouldn't think it was funny.
well, so he said he would help me, with this thing, but I had to do all the work. I had to do all the research and learn all about everything. And so, I learned a lot about intellectual property law through all that. We sent them a response with the appendix that was thick and of usage of the word double shot in the coffee industry, including Howard Schultz used it in his book. So it's hard for them to defend it, but in the end, we didn't know what was going to happen, but they did back down eventually and allowed me to keep the name.
That's good. That's good. Well, and on top of that, you were then featured in a film, The Perfect Cappuccino. That was almost 20 years ago, right? So this was all happening in those first formative years, right?
Right. I think the film came out in 2007, just after this whole thing concluded with Starbucks. And at the end, I mean, spoiler alert, I guess, but they offered to pay for me to put a space between double and shot. And I almost accepted because, it seems like not much to give up. And I thought about it and I thought, they're just pushing me around. And so I said, no, I'm not doing it. You're going to have to take me to court.
Good for you. Good for you for standing your ground, though. I mean, I agree. So how would you say that experience, whether it was like the whole Starbucks thing or in combination with, the film and earning the fame, if you will, for standing your ground, how does that inform how you do things today?
I mean, that wasn't the only legal battle that I've been involved in since I opened the double shot, unfortunately. But every time something comes up, whether it's legal or not legal, there's always controversy around me for some reason. I always say, am I right or am I wrong? And if I'm right and people with power are just trying to push me around, then I stand up for what I believe in. If I'm wrong, of course, I change. Yeah.
Yeah. So where can you actually watch that movie today?
I think it's on Amazon Prime Video still.
Okay.
I'm not sure where else you can find it. I have a funny story about that, though.
Yeah.
A big tour bus pulled up in front of Double Shot one day, and somebody came over and said, Kevin Bacon's in there. And I was thinking, I haven't watched TV or movies for years. And so I was thinking, Kevin Bacon, I know that name. And so I walked into the other room, and sure enough, there's this guy that I recognize, Kevin Bacon. And he walked over to me and he said, I really liked your movie. And I was like, well, this is awkward. And then he asked if he could get a picture with me and stuff. It was like really funny.
That is awesome. Hopefully you have that picture and you can share with us. So that is cool. I think that is absolutely something that not many people can claim. So let's talk about your vision for the company. Your vision for the company, long term. What do you want to do with Double Shot?
Oh, that's hard. I do think we're at a turning point coming up to 20 years. It sort of feels like the end of an era in some ways. And I've been thinking a lot about what the future is going to be. And I know turning 50, I don't know, maybe I'm having a midlife crisis, but I have to start thinking about what this company looks like after I'm gone. And I don't know what that is right now. We're trying to figure that out, but the Double Shot is a really important place for this community. I mean, hundreds of people come in here every day and they love it. I mean, we have avid followers here in Tulsa. And so I really feel a responsibility to my employees and to my customers to figure out how this thing can be sustained after I'm not doing everything, which is ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and you're still roasting, right? I mean, you're still the roast master. Do you have a team that also that you have fill in? Because I know you were roasting coffee when we were, at Origin.
I don't have a team that fills in. I'm the only person who knows how to roast coffee here. So yeah, there's a lot of things like that. Like if I go out in the wilderness this weekend and die, we're in trouble, you know?
Okay, so I like that you have a plan, that you're going to have you're gonna have a succession plan.
Yeah.
So well, and I just had mentioned Origin, so let's talk a little bit about Origin trips, which is where I met you. First time I met you was in Costa Rica, on the farm. So how many different, I guess, how many different countries or how many different farms have you been to?
Oh gosh, I have no idea. A lot. My first Origin trip was to La Manita in 2005. So it was the year after I opened. I mean, not even a whole year after I opened. And it was this experience, probably like you had, where I go down there and like I'm touching the coffee trees and the coffee cherries and smelling the coffee flowers and meeting the people who pick the coffee and the people who take care of the farm. And it completely changed my perception of coffee and the responsibility that I have as a roaster and a person who brews coffee, a barista, to take more care and um, to explain to the customers how much goes into coffee before we get it. And so it's been a mission of mine to know the people I buy the coffee from. And I've spent the last 19 years traveling all over the world trying to meet people and understand coffee better at Origin.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely connected the dots for me to go there, feel it, touch it, see it, in action. So, what would you say is the biggest learning from those trips?
Oh, gosh. Well, this has all led up to the farm in Nicaragua, right? I've learned so much about the agriculture and the post-harvest processing of coffee over the years that I really feel like I can take the next step and have control over it from the very beginning. Uh,
Mhm.
the early on in 2007, I went to Colombia and met a guy who owned a coffee farm that was really passionate about coffee, and we started talking about processing and did some experiments way back then. And I ended up exporting the first natural from Colombia in 2008. So it's been going on for a long time. The different things that we've been able to manage to pull off somehow from this little tiny cafe in Tulsa.
Yeah. Well, and talk about that in Colombia a little bit, because I think that it was difficult to export at that time. Like, how did you actually make that happen? How did you maneuver a whole other, country's rules around exporting?
So I was going down to Colombia on a trip with La Minita because they were building a mill in Jardín, and I figured while I was in Colombia, I should try and meet another coffee farmer. And so I went on Google and just tried to find somebody who owned a farm, and I found this woman named Cristina Garces, and she agreed to meet with me after I was done with La Minita in Medellin. And when I met her, she took me to the office and explained to me that her family was the largest producer of coffee in the country, which Colombia at the time was the second largest producer in the world. And so I'm standing in the office of this person who's just a gigantic force in coffee throughout the world, unknowingly, right? And so I just
Hmm.
got lucky, really. And so her boyfriend was Ariel Montoya, and he's the guy who produced that El Boton Natural. So when we decided to start exporting it, the FNC, the federation in Colombia, said that we couldn't export it. And so I had to write a letter to the director of coffee quality at the FNC to convince him that I knew what I was buying and that I wanted this coffee. And eventually they let us do it.
That's crazy. I mean, most people would just go, "Oh, okay, I can't do it," and they'd walk away. But there's something about the way you're wired, Brian. You find a way. So okay, so here, and actually, I want to turn this to you for a little bit. So you've faced a number of life challenges. So just share a couple that you're comfortable sharing, and then tell us like which one has had the most impact on you.
Oh, gosh. I mean, I almost died of carbon monoxide poisoning before I opened DoubleShot, right before I opened. And then when I opened, I lived in an apartment with no utilities for 3.5 years. During that time, I fired my entire staff and worked by myself for 10 months. I went to SCAA in Long Beach, and a friend of mine got me a plane ticket with flyer miles, and I couldn't afford a hotel, so I slept on a park bench. I've done a lot of stupid things like that, but all of it really comes back to my desire to be in this industry and to continue to serve great coffee. And control. I've learned through sport to control the way I feel about things. I know that I can control my own mind, and so regardless of my circumstances, I know that I can say, no, I love living without utilities. I love eating ramen noodles every day. And you can convince yourself of that, and it is fine. Until you're able to change your circumstances, you have to just go with what you have.
That's a powerful mindset, because I'm not sure I could say I love living without utilities, but I give you credit for that, for sure, for sure. So, okay, so I want to talk a little bit about funding, but actually, even before I go to funding, I want to go back to the farm in Nicaragua, because you started to talk about sort of what that you wanted to control the whole process, right? So purchasing land in Nicaragua, very similar to when you wanted to export coffee out of Colombia, like that can't be necessarily an easy process to purchase land in another country. So how does one go about doing that?
Okay, I don't actually own the land in Nicaragua. I own the right to use the land. So
Okay.
it's in an area that's sort of a preserved area for the country. And so we're
Mhm.
only allowed to do certain things. Like we can't cut down the big trees in the area. We
Mhm.
can only clear the ground cover and plant coffee trees there. So I have a friend who I met in Panama, and he ended up moving back to his home country of Nicaragua and called me up and said, "Hey, I'm going to start another coffee farm here and want to know if I'd invest in it." And I agreed to do that. And then he called me up again and said, "Hey, there's some land available next to our farm in Matagalpa, and wanted to know if I was interested in purchasing that land, the right to use the land, and planting coffee there for my own use, not as a part of his company." And so I agreed to do that. But for sure, if I didn't have a friend on the ground there helping me manage the farm, it would be impossible.
Yeah. Right. Well, and I read that you had just planted like 5,800 coffee trees. Was that this year?
Yeah, it was right at the beginning of the year. So we should have our first small harvest at the end of 2025, I believe. So got a little bit of time yet.
That's exciting, though. That's exciting. So, okay, so funding, like how and where have you obtained funding, like throughout your coffee journey? You've had a lot of like major inflection points, right? And so, whether it was like a larger facility or buying a coffee farm, like what is it? Did you bring in investors? Did you do, bank loans? Like what is your source of funding?
Originally, I mean, it took me 2 years to get the place open because no one would loan me any money, and rightfully so. But eventually, I got a guy to loan me $20,000, and my mom loaned me, some money, 20 or 40 or something. Not much. I had about half of what I needed. And so I opened with just bare bones. We had an espresso machine and a coffee roaster and a brewer. And I paid that money back. And then in 2010, we expanded and doubled the size of the cafe, which was a big risk, but it didn't take any extra capital. I just was able to, I hand build everything. So my dad and I built all the tables, and, we just expanded by sweat equity, really. And then in 2019, like you said, we moved into this big building, and that was an ordeal. I started that effort in 2012. I wanted to get out of under my landlord, and tried to get 3 investors involved. One of them came to me eventually and said he wanted to do the entire investment by himself. And then so I told the other two to invest their money elsewhere. And then the guy pulled the rug out from under me. And I've had a couple of those things happen to me. And it probably is for the best, because I'm 100% owner of everything that I have now. I don't have any
Mm-hmm.
investors. Eventually, the bank that I've been doing business with for ages, Spirit Bank, um, told me that they could loan me the money to build this building. I was dating my banker at the time, so I don't know if that helped or not, but
That might help a little.
so they loaned me the money to build the building. It was like, you're going to loan me $1 million? Wow. This is something different I've never experienced.
Well, so you go out, you've had opportunities to have investors, you've done bank loans, but you just recently raised money as well on Kickstarter to publish your book detailing your coffee experiences. So first of all, congratulations.
Thanks.
So talk through how much you ended up raising, and and how long it took you to do that, because it didn't take you very long.
Right. We started with a $10,000 goal, and we hit that really pretty quickly. Thanks partly to you. And then we put a stretch goal out there of 20,000, and we hit that. And so I said, well, let's go for 25, because that was actually the number that we wanted to start with, and I was too scared to go to 25 initially. And we ended up just over 25,000 at the end of the thing.
That's awesome. So tell us, why did you write the book? Tell us a little bit about it, and also the why behind writing it.
I mean, it's always been the mission of DoubleShot to provide excellent coffee experiences to as many people as we can. And I think coming up on 20 years in the business, I've just had my head down and working really hard, trying to learn and do a good job. And now I'm looking back, thinking about all the things that I have learned about coffee, and all the things I haven't shared with people that I know about coffee, or the experiences that have happened throughout the years at DoubleShot. And the people who are big fans of DoubleShot don't really know the whole story behind all that. And so I figured it was time to actually put that down on paper. People have been telling me to write a book for years. And I'm really excited to get it done. It's probably over halfway written right now, and we're gonna finish it up and have it out by next November.
Perfect. Well, and you have enough content for sure with the different experiences you've gone through to fill a book and then some. So who's the intended audience? Is it coffee professionals, coffee enthusiasts, or casual drinkers, or just sort of like all of the above?
Right. I mean, it's for people in the coffee industry, people thinking about getting into the coffee industry. I mean, athletes, there's a lot in there about, what I've learned through sport and brought to this business. It's for people who drink coffee for sure. And a lot of that is that I know that most people will never appreciate a cup of coffee like I do. And it's because of how much I know about coffee. The more you know about a thing, and the more intentionally that you consume a thing, the more pleasurable it becomes. Like, you can drink a cup of coffee, and I know the guy who grew the coffee, and I know what variety it is, and I understand why it tastes the way it does. And when I drink it, I can sit there and savor all the details. I understand the history of where the variety came from. It's all in there. It's in the cup. But if you don't know all that, you're just drinking coffee. And that's not my mission. My mission is to educate people so that when they drink the coffee, they'll go, "Oh my gosh, this is the best geisha washed coffee that I've ever had." And it's like, wow, this is fantastic.
Yeah, I love that. I absolutely love that. So you just talked about a couple of things about takeaways, right? With correlating to sports or whatever. Can you share, a takeaway or two that from the book that, without revealing all the wonderful takeaways that I know are going to come down the pipeline when you're finishing it, but just something that you're hoping, readers will take away.
Hoping readers will take away. Well, here's an important one for you. Sometimes I go and talk in front of groups, and this is the one I always give them because they like it. I was in Guatemala I don't know, a long time ago. and I was in Antigua, and I decided to climb Volcan Agua, I think it was. And I went out there by myself. Everybody told me not to. So I climbed this volcano, and all day I've been handing out candy to the old people, and everybody was so nice while I was hiking. You know, there's little villages along the mountainside, and I get to the top, and there's this bunch of police up there and a weather station, and they offered me hot chocolate. Everybody had just been so nice the whole day. And so on my way down, I was thinking, you know, I don't know what everybody's so worried about out here. And all of a sudden, two guys jump out of the bushes, and one guy cocks a pistol and points it at my face, and another guy has a machete, and he runs around behind me, screaming at me in Spanish. And they pat me down and take my cell phone, and I pleaded with them in Spanish, like, I need my cell phone. I have to call my girlfriend. She's going to be worried. So the guy takes my SIM card out and gives me my SIM card back. And then they're like, is there anybody else with you? And I said, no. And they said, get out of here. And then he said, well, there's a shortcut. If you go up the way, you can take a shortcut down to the bottom of the mountain. So I did that. And when I got down there, I thought, he probably told me to take the shortcut because there were more people waiting for me.
Oh my, yeah. That's the first thing that would come to mind for me.
And the takeaway is never retrace your path. Always circle back. So you never want to go back, right? But if you have to go back, don't retrace your path because they're waiting for you.
Yeah. That is crazy. That is a crazy story. Oh my God. So, and I'll be honest, Brian, I can't wait to read the whole story. I mean, like your whole book, because I'm positive there are other things like that in there.
A lot. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. So you are not a status quo kind of guy. Is there anything in the coffee industry that you would like to change or improve?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think we can always improve. I feel like we go through these weird phases. A few years ago, no one would drink naturals. You know, nobody would drink naturals. Now everybody's doing naturals.
Mm-hmm.
There's this tendency to deify popular people in the industry, and everybody follows what they say. I mean, I know Doug Zell, and I've known him for years, the founder of Intelligentsia Coffee. And
Mm-hmm.
After I met him, you know, I used to always say, if you're doing what Intelligentsia is doing, it's too late. They already did it, you know? So there needs to be, I mean, even in the competitions, there's this thing in specialty coffee where it's like, here's the rules. Here's how you do it. If you don't do it exactly how we tell you to do it, then we're going to mark you down on points. Well, in my opinion, that's the wrong way of doing things. There needs to be more creativity in the industry, and it's getting better, to be sure. But in some ways, you know, we're still like coffee in the 80s or beer in the 90s. You know, we're still putting like adjuncts in our coffee to flavor it because the flavor of coffee on its own isn't enough. I walked into the trade show last year, and it smelled like cloves. And I was walking around the Specialty Coffee Association wondering why it smelled like chai or whatever, and nobody seemed to notice. It was weird. So yeah, there could be a lot more overall focus on coffee itself, I believe.
Yeah. So I always appreciate your viewpoint. I have something that has continually come up around coffee and expiration dates. And one of the things that I've found being new to coffee is saying, okay, what is the right answer? And I have had polar opposite answers come my way. So I'm curious what your view is on coffee having an expiration date and what that is.
Back in probably 2007, I started sending one of my baristas, Isaiah Sheese, on these barista competitions. He just won the world U.S. Barista Championship this year, finally. Yeah,
that's exciting.
I know.
It's a big accomplishment.
He has his own shop now up in Nebraska, so good for him.
Very cool.
But back in the day, we'd get marked down because the coffee was too fresh. And, between Isaiah and I, we were like, what is going on right now? It doesn't make any sense. And so I've always been about 100% freshness. I mean, to the point where I have grabbed coffee out of the cooling bin while it's still 400 degrees and run over to the grinder and poured it in the grinder, and smoke pours out of the grinder, and then you brew it with like cold water, I just love, who else can do that besides a coffee roaster? I just love the idea of freshness, and the idea that you would hold on to coffee for any amount of time more than you needed to after it's roasted is ludicrous, in my opinion. So, we don't sell coffee that's over, mostly it's not over 2 or 3 days old. For sure, if it hits 7, we get rid of it. But, I always recommend 7 to 10 days. And all coffee is different. Every coffee bean degasses differently, but there's science behind it. When the coffee is really an amazing thing, because when you roast it, there are these little pockets of oils inside of there that are the thing that we want to drink. And there's a byproduct that's carbon dioxide, right? And carbon dioxide protects the oil from going rancid, which is a miracle, right? But over time, that carbon monoxide is like pressurized inside of the coffee bean. It's going to start leaking out through those semi-permeable cell walls. Yeah. And then once that equilibrium is reached, oxygen starts replacing the carbon dioxide in there, and that oil starts to go rancid. Well, that's what stale coffee is. It's, and so it happens over time. It's a fact.
So just in talking about that, is that related to when you almost died of carbon monoxide poisoning?
No, that was some kind of fireplace issue, I think. I don't know.
Oh, okay. Okay. I'll wait for that story in the book. Okay, so Brian, do you have a life motto, or simply like words you live by? I have literally like 3 major ones, but
yeah, I'm probably wrong at this point, but I've always been chasing after freedom, like absolute freedom, which is probably why I'm still not married, unfortunately. But
we'll start the coffee roasters bachelor show next.
There you go. Yeah, so back in the day, I felt like I had a lot of freedom because I was so physically fit that I could do anything I wanted at any time. Like people could go, "Hey, you want to go run a marathon this weekend?" And I'd say, "Yeah, sure, that sounds fun." I could do anything, and I had to sacrifice some of that because I didn't have any money. That's a limited tier of freedom, and so I try to earn some money in DoubleShot, and now I've got more financial abilities, but I've had to kind of scratch back at my physical abilities to have that freedom again. So I have 3 words really that I attribute to what causes me to have the most freedom. It's liberty, integrity, and ability. And those are the 3 things that I focus on in order to try to make sure that I'm not hindering myself.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love that. I love that. And I can see that sort of throughout your journey that seems to have rung true. So, okay, is there one piece of advice that you'd give to someone that wants to enter the coffee industry?
Don't do it. It's really hard. I think that if you're going to start a business in the coffee industry, you need to be aware that you need to decide first how you define success. Like what's your goal? And that has to be very specific, because people used to tell me all the time, if you work hard and you have a great product, you'll make a lot of money. And I said, that sounds great, because I can work really hard and I know I have a great product. Well, that's not really true, right? If you work hard and you have a great product, you can achieve your goal. My goal was to have a great product. If you want to make a lot of money, you have to focus on money. And that's a different thing. So I personally wish that there was less focus on money in the coffee industry, less people just doing things to try and get as much money out of consumers as possible, and would focus more on the quality of the coffee. So I guess my advice is, if you're not willing to make a lot of sacrifices and focus on quality, go sell a different widget.
Yeah, that's fair. That's good advice. Okay. So I know we're a little bit over time, so I'm going to run through these last few questions, which are sort of, I'll say, kind of semi-rapid fire. And these are standard U3 coffee questions I like to ask. So can you share a general coffee industry stat that you find interesting or fascinating?
Yeah. When I first got into the coffee business, I had done a lot of research, right? And the National Coffee Association says that 75% of Americans drink coffee every day. And when I got into the coffee industry, I realized that that's not true at all. Nobody likes coffee. Everybody hates coffee, and rightfully so. I don't like it either. Tastes terrible. They put lots of milk and sugar in it because it tastes terrible. They need to drink better coffee.
Perfect. All right. Along those same lines, share a random fascinating fact that most coffee consumers probably don't know.
Oh, man. Coffee consumers don't know. Oh, yeah. This is where I always start all my talks. Coffee beans are seeds of coffee cherries that grow on trees in the mountains and the tropics.
Yes, that's good. And you're exactly right. Not a lot of people know that. Okay. This is what I call the U3 top 3. So very brief answers. Your favorite brewing method?
Every day I get up and I hand grind coffee and I make a pour over with a V60 on a launch pad.
Perfect. And your coffee drink of choice? And I think I already know this, but black, latte, hot, cold, specific origin or wash?
Yeah, I tend toward naturals. I love naturals because, for a lot of reasons. But I drink Americanos every day. I only drink black coffee.
Yep. And how many cups of coffee do you drink per day?
I drink the one in the morning for pleasure, and then I drink several throughout the day to make sure that my baristas are making coffee properly or that my roast profile is right. So not a lot, but quality.
Got it. All right. Well, Brian, I can't tell you how much I have enjoyed talking to you, and I know we could have talked for hours more, but I want to give you an opportunity to share where someone can learn more about you or about DoubleShot, and where people are going to be able to get a copy of your book next year. Right.
I mean, you can find, there's a ton of information on my website. It's been up for years and years and years. So it's at doubleshotcoffee.com. I have another company where we're making and importing coffee gear. It's called Native Design. It's at native.design. In the book, you can find it at purist.coffee. I'm the coffee purist.
You are the coffee purist. I love that. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Brian. What an incredible, eventful journey. And as Brian said, you can go to his website. He's got this wonderful timeline of his story as well, which I think is fascinating to read. So thanks again for joining us today, Brian.
Thanks, Christy.
Absolutely. And thank you for helping us unite the world through coffee. And thanks to you, our followers, for joining us at U3 Coffee. We'll see you next time.